So we're going to go live in 2 minutes. I can see you've put yourself on mute.
Yes, yes.
Oh, yeah, we'll go live in 2 minutes.
Do I look better like
that? Your cap is hiding your face. Your kofia is hiding your face.
So this one is better?
Yes, that one is better. At least we can see your face.
Right.
Ram, just put the water pump on, please. Yes. David is sending me a message. If your team wants to follow anything, it is on, the page is Radull Live on Facebook.
Radull Live on Facebook.
Yes, Radull Live on Facebook. R-A-D-L-L on Facebook.
Good.
I think we're ready to go live.
Well, good.
Hello.
Hi.
Good afternoon. We're actually live. What we do when we go live is just to share on some of our other pages so that we can increase the viewership and alert people that we are live. Let me just make sure we are going live and people are tuning in. Just give me a few minutes, sir.
Right, okay. Yeah.
I think we can start. I hope you, how are you doing, first of all, sir?
Very well, we're doing fine. Of course, the times are hard.
First of all, COVID-19 times are very difficult for everybody.
Very, very difficult.
Yes, just to introduce you to people who are watching, I am here with the Chief Administrative Secretary, Honorable Hassan Noor Hassan, Ministry of Sports, Culture and Heritage. I hope I've got that title correct.
Sports, Culture and Heritage.
Sports, Culture and Heritage, yes. Usually we do Radull live on set, but I know you're not even in town, and I know you have a very busy afternoon. So we'll get into this discussion very, very quickly. First of all, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
You're feeling good.
Very well, yeah.
A lot of people have been asking me, when I told them I'll be interviewing the Chief Administrative Secretary, the first question I got is, what does a Chief Administrative Secretary do in the ministry? So as simple as that question may sound, it would be good if you could just enlighten us.
Very well. The Chief Administrative Secretary is basically the principal deputy to the Cabinet Secretary. And he helps the Cabinet Secretary in the delivery of her duties and delivering of her mandate across the entire ministry. He stands in for her when she's not there and deputizes her in all functions, but basically also coordinates the entire ministry.
So basically, you're
policy and yes.
So basically, you're the man. If
yes,
I can use your terms, you're the man.
Right. You can say that.
Now, Honorable Hassan, if you could just explain to those of us who do not understand, what is the role of the Ministry of Sport? It may sound like a simple question, but I always get asked things like why you don't sponsor clubs, why you don't open welfare societies for players and things like that. What is the role of the sports ministry? Let's start with the very basics.
Thank you, Caro. The role of the sports ministry is to provide policy direction on matters of sports. The ministry also funds major sporting events, both locally and internationally. We also are involved in the development and rehabilitation of sports facilities and infrastructure. You know very well that Kenya is a sports powerhouse, and they go and represent, Kenya participates in very many international and local forums and regional forums in sporting matters. And therefore the ministry steps in to provide the policy involved, the funds so required for events that are local and international. And also the ministry provides and funds constructions of and rehabilitations of sports facilities and infrastructure. And we'll see that as we go on with our interview. The ministry plays oversight role in matters of sports. It performs the monitoring and evaluation of all sporting activities and programs and projects and institutions in the country. And therefore, really, it is a one-stop shop on matters of sports in this country.
Okay, I'll get back to some of the things you've just said. Because this is live Facebook and there are people watching, we try to make it as interactive as possible. So I just want to send a few shout outs to people who are watching. Kasome Wathinga, I can see Deco Kazola is watching from Nyeri, Duke Orao is watching from Kisumu City, Princess Nelly is watching from Doha in Qatar, Hertie Batolilo, okay, here's a different issue about lighting, which I think we're here to hear exactly what you have to say. Raima Jaka, thank you for tuning in. Heritia Batolile, I'm not sure which mic you want to listen to, but both of us, I think a lot of people have said the sound is clear, so maybe the sound has a problem on your end. Sherry Nangai wants to know a lot about football. Jared Mumbo is here watching the show as well, and people will join as we go along and ask questions as we go along. Now, something you have mentioned, you've mentioned infrastructure, which I'll get to a bit later on, but you've also mentioned an oversight role. And I know some of the issues we've had before, especially, and this is not just about football, today it's about sport, but in particular, when you come to the Football Kenya Federation, every time they tend to run away to FIFA when you're trying to play an oversight role. How much can you get involved in the running of football, for example? How much can you get involved as a ministry and provide direction?
Thank you very much, Caro. We have, of course, our level of interaction between sporting organizations are through federations. We allow some leeway for sports federations to manage the affairs of the specific sports discipline that are there. And therefore, sports federations serve as a non-governing bodies, the non-governmental bodies that give support to sports disciplines of their own. They administer their own grassroots, national levels, and implementation of rules as crafted by international bodies. Therefore, the critical, our bridge that puts us together with sports men and women in this country is the federations. And in this case, the football is just one amongst the many federations. Can
I just stop you for 1 second? Do you have somebody who has a speaker on in that room? Because there's an echo coming through as if somebody has a speaker on. So I think that's the sound that somebody was mentioning.
Is it there now?
There's still an echo, but okay, I think just continue. You're talking about your role when it comes to giving direction to federations.
Yes, and therefore football in this case is just one among the many federations that the ministry provides policy direction. And we must make sure that they adhere to their own constitutions and rules of the game so that they are governed by their own, they are self-regulating federations that the ministry oversees in terms of policy directions. And therefore they also organize their own grassroots competitions, national champions, they do their own elections, they develop prospective buyers, they nurture talents. And therefore that is where, when it comes to nurturing talents, of course, we have the national sports academies that they are supposed to tap in. And therefore, football is part and parcel of the organs that the government provides policy directions of an oversight authority.
But when we don't see this happening, because what you have explained is an ideal situation, that is what federations are supposed to do. But we don't see this happening. Case in point, we have the election fiasco that's going on with Football Kenya Federation. It's happened in so many other sports, swimming, it's happened in cricket. And it's the feeling we get from the outside looking in is that the ministry just watches. You know, you just allow these federations to make a mess, so to speak, and not to obey the laws of the land.
I don't think so. The ministry has an oversight responsibility, but the day-to-day running of federations are their own business. And therefore, the ministry must make sure that the federations follow their own ethics, follows their own constitutions, and that the ministry does it through the sports registrar. The sports registrar must confirm that all federations adhere to their own constitutions, to their own rules and regulations. If they do not adhere to it, there is, of course, the Sports Act provides for the Cabinet Secretary to step in and form an oversight committee that manages that specific sports discipline. And therefore, we don't just wait and see and allow federations to make a mess of themselves.
On a personal level, does it bother you that in most sports, apart from athletics, that Kenya doesn't do well, that Kenya doesn't progress? Does it bother the sports ministry, or do you sit there and say, this is the job of the federation, it's the federation who's making a mess?
We don't do that. We get involved. We have gotten involved in quite a number of them. We have been able to streamline a number of them. I remember boxing was one of them in the last 2 years. We have been looking at cricket. We are looking at football. All of them. It does, of course, bother us when we find a federation squabbling among themselves. But, Carol, it's important to note that sports federations by nature are political organizations. Their officials come to office through elections. And elections by nature are chaotic. They are rough. They break rules at times. But we have the sports registrar that guides over the basic principles of proper coordination and proper election process in the federations.
We saw recently, especially when it comes to FKF, that the elections have delayed by almost 6 months. They delayed even before. I know everything is blamed now on the COVID situation, but we had the tribunal that ruled one way, it was ignored, it was overruled, it's a mess what is happening in terms of football elections at the moment. Is there any way the ministry can step in and rescue that situation?
The ministry is already looking at it, and these matters will be resolved in shortly. I think we don't need to belabor so much about this one. Football is, of course, the most popular sport in the country, most popular sport in the world. It definitely generates and elicits a lot of emotions. It elicits a lot of politics, and the ministry will be fully involved in it, making sure that it is streamlined. We want a situation where the scoreboards that we have in federations do not hamper the efficient progress of sportsmen and women's talent development.
When you talk of talent development, which of these academies that the ministry is directly involved in? Are there any specific academies?
We have an academy of sports at Kasarani, but the ministry's long-term vision, and I think the plan is now the plan is on course, is to have a sports academy in every county, in every constituency in this country, because you cannot be able to nurture talents if we do not have academies across the country. We of course have training facilities, both private and public, that we have in many of the counties. But we want to nurture talent academies in every constituency, and that's the vision of the ministry.
Do we have a timeline for that?
I don't have the dates now, but I think, we'll be able to start that in shortly.
You mentioned infrastructure, the big one. The Stadia we were promised, I think 10 years ago, 2 elections ago. As we stand now, I don't believe we have a single state-of-the-art stadium in this country. We have Kasarani that's big, but if you actually go to Kasarani, it's a very uncomfortable place to be. What is the plan when it comes to Stadia? And this question has come up over and over again from the fans and stakeholders.
Thank you. Very well, Caro. I think the question of Stadia has been on our mind for quite a while now. And when you mention sports in this country, definitely the state of stadiums come to mind. Stadiums have, of course, had their own challenges in the last few years. We've had the launch of nearly 7 stadiums in the country. That was in September 2016. Many of them are not yet completed. This is because of resource constraints that came a long way through the National Treasury. But the President, in his wisdom, has been able to resolve that matter, and that we have now a sports and social development fund that helps in providing the necessary funds required for the development of the sports infrastructure. And therefore, the stadiums are now in course. Kinoro is almost at the verge of completion, is about 87% completed. Chuka is going to be completed in the next two and a half months. We have got Nyeri that is coming up very well. And by end of year, Nyeri is going to be there. Caro, I can see you are really, you're laughing about this story.
I am laughing because you have given me a very political answer.
I will not give you, Caro. Caro, this is the reality. The political answers that were given in the past years are not going to be there now. And those political answers were never backed with the resources. I can assure you now, these answers are now backed by resources. Kipchoge is coming up. I was there last week. And by end of this year, by December, God willing, we will have 7 stadiums completed, Caro.
I think we need a repeat interview in 7 months when this has happened, because we've been promised so many stadia, Kisumu, the county stadia, and I don't know whether the government oversees what's happening with county stadia, like City Stadium. I know it's under the county, but still it is facilities that clubs and sports need in this country. And we keep hearing these things and hearing these things and hearing these things, but not seeing these promises come to fruition.
I think those who are in the areas I have mentioned now, Wote, Kamarini in Iten, Kipchoge in Eldoret, Ruringu in Nyeri, Chuka in Tharaka Nithi. Those Kenyans who live there will definitely know very well, and they will agree with me that work is going on. In fact, in some of the stadiums, we have 24-hour shifts, work going on. We've asked the county government, the Ministry of Interior, to provide us with security and lighting facilities to make sure that the work does not stop by any way. Therefore, this is not a political statement, Caro, and you are welcome to interview me 6 months from now.
No offense to some of the locations you've mentioned, but what is happening with stadia in key towns and cities? Because, and again, I'll just use football as an example and maybe rugby as an example. A lot of these sports are played, at least from a Premier League level, in Mombasa, in Kisumu, in Nairobi, in Kakamega, and some of these cities were still. You've not mentioned any of the stadia in any of those cities, including when Nyayo Stadium will be ready.
Nyayo is almost 97% ready. In fact, we're just waiting for handing over in the next few days. Nyayo is also some of the places where we are working on 24-hour shifts. Work is going on very well. You mentioned the other cities. Kisumu Stadium is also kicking off very soon. The tenders are being awarded. with the support of the county government and the national government ourselves. And therefore, this work is going on, Caro. Definitely, stadiums, you know very well, sports is a devolved function. As
Yes.
the ministry does the major infrastructure development, the counties have also come up and they're doing quite some good job. Last week, I was in Kericho, and I can assure you, Kericho County has one of the best synthetic track stadium in the country today. We've just launched it last week, and this is done courtesy by the county government of Kericho. We need the other counties also to take a clue from Kericho and do it. Bungoma is also coming up. Kisii has done a wonderful stadium and pitch, and therefore these are not just it's not just the national government that is involved in the sports development. Our ministry is fully engaged with the county governments to make sure that infrastructures within the counties are also for sports facilities are also developed.
Yes, I was actually in Kericho a couple of months ago, and you're right, the tartan track is fantastic, but the stands are still horrific. I hope they get to the stands at some point. My concern when it comes to stadia is these stadia that are rarely ready, when there is a political event, they're instantly ready. We saw that happen in Kinoru. We've seen Nyayo Stadium being used for political events. We've seen the stadium in Narok being used for political events. But when it comes to Kenyan Premier League, all of a sudden, they're not ready again. I mean, what's the priority of this government?
The priority of this government is to nurture and develop sports. And politics is not our daily food. We don't nurture politics. The ministry's business is to nurture sports, and that's what we are ready to do it. And it's not about politics. It's about developing of stadia, and work is going on very well.
There's a comment here from someone called Senteo Mariani Olesankei. He says, Radull, don't do a repeat interview. Let the ministry sponsor you to do a tour of all these stadiums and then report back to us.
Wonderful. Radull, you're welcome. And the ministry is ready to take you around this stadium to see this for yourself. That work is going on.
I will take you up on that. I belong to an organization called Jaza Study, and our aim is to try and get these stadiums filled up. And most of the time people say, well, there's nowhere to sit, there's nowhere to go to the toilet, there's nowhere to do all these things. So I will talk to my Jaza Study colleagues, and then I think, yes, arrange for us a tour so we can go one by one to each and every one of these stadiums you have mentioned, and then we give a report back to these people. I have a comment here from Peter Ongondo. I'm not sure if you know him, and a very famed Kenyan cricketer once upon a time. He says, cricket is still struggling. Does this government really care about what is happening when it comes to cricket in this country? You saw us host, I think it was 2003 was the last time Kenya was mentioned in lights when it comes to international cricket, and it's been downhill since then.
Very well. I know cricket has had issues, but as I said, the ministry is fully committed to delivering on its mandate as far as sports are concerned. I know cricket, we've been doing very well in cricket in the past, and cricket has had also its own political problems, management issues as far as the federation is concerned. That matter is being handled by the ministry very well. And I hope that in the years to come, there's quite some good future for cricket as we go ahead.
In fact, I would ask that your office actually takes a keen interest in what is happening in cricket, because just the way the elections in football or in but we don't even know when the elections are going to take place, and things seem to be going all right. Cricket seems to have the same issues. And I think we've had the same team in charge for far too long who've done very little to develop cricket in this country. It's actually been downhill. We were at the World Cup, I think, about 10 years ago again. Very bad showing out there, but it's been downhill since then. So I would ask your office to actually have a look at that. There's a comment here from Ngesti DS Dunga Mata. Please ask the CAS. It's in the public domain that when Sport Pesa folded its operations, many sports teams were left in disarray in terms of sponsorship. What became of the much talked about sports fund?
The sports fund,
yes.
Thank you. Yeah, there's of course quite some truth in what she said, and that is about the betting funds that has been there to support the sports fund. Of course, has had a downward trend, but the sports fund is now funded, of course, with a bit of limitations as far as the betting firms are concerned. We have to make a choice between what we think may be evil or what maybe is a burden to society, and look at the sporting, how we can be able to manage our sports. And therefore, if the government finds in its own wisdom that betting is disastrous to this country, or the way it's being done is not in the right manner, then I think government has a duty to make its own controls. However, the sports fund is not just sports only. I want Caro to expand a little bit on this. I don't know whether you are coming up with the questions about the fund, but the fund itself, yes.
Yes, my question was, and I'm fully aware that the sports fund is for the whole ministry, including culture and heritage. But the fact is that a lot of the money that is collected by the sports fund is coming from sports betting, which is primarily betting on football. And I think it is only right that one of the sports to majorly benefit from this fund should be football, without neglecting other sports like rugby and cricket and some of the others.
I do agree with you that the sports fund is supposed to fund sports, but it doesn't fund sports alone. And it's not just for the ministry. This fund, in fact, 65% of the fund is domiciled outside this ministry. This ministry gets only 40% of the fund. So that's why it's the Sports and Social Development Fund. And I do agree that football is a major beneficiary from the sports fund. And therefore, like other sports, of course, they get their own tranche as and when they do their request. And therefore, yes.
I think football, last year you gave 250 million or 249 million or thereabouts to FKF for the AFCON assignment. Aside from that, I'm not sure what else you give to football, and maybe just talking about that 250 million, sorry. Have you followed up exactly how it was used?
Very well. Thank you, Caro. You rightly put it and say that FKF was given 244 million in the AFCON funding. The amount was supposed to be used for team preparation to AFCON and cater for expenses during AFCON competition. And therefore, the question of whether the money was spent in the right manner is a matter that is being handled by the monitoring and evaluation team. And with officers from FKF, they are looking at, these are the team from the of the Sports and the Arts and Development Fund. They are looking at the resource that has been given to them, like they do with every sport discipline that they do funding. Once funding is given and fund is utilized, both after utilization and within the course of utilization, there's a monitoring and evaluation committee that critically looks at the way the funds have been spent. I need to add that this is public funds. This is funds that have been given from the national treasury, and therefore it must be spent in accordance with the Public Finance and Appropriation Act of Parliament. Thanks.
Which other monies have you given back to football or to rugby or to I know golf has probably been the biggest beneficiary of the sports fund when it comes to sports, shockingly, which is no offense to people who play golf, but between me and you, you know it's not the most popular sport in this country. But how is this money distributed? How is the sports fund?
The money is distributed by requests from federations. They do their requests. They do their request to the sports fund. The fund has a management committee that sits down and looks at it, and the committee is a committee composed of people from across various disciplines and also from government, and therefore they look at the request from all organizations. As you know very well, Caro, there's no time funds will be enough for everybody. We'll of course have to make sure that our priorities are truly correct and give the right funds to the right sports as and when they request for it. You may not be able to get the entire fund that you so request, but it depends on, again, how you present your case to the board, how you convince the board, how do you make sure that how you use those funds that you are given in the past. Those are some of the challenges that we all have to endure and go through. But the fund has been very supportive. The fund has been able to support quite a number of the programs. In fact, the completion of the infrastructure now, as I had indicated earlier, the stadiums that are being constructed is being funded by the Sports and Arts and Social Development Fund.
If I may ask, what criteria or what do you consider something important enough for you to give money to? And the reason I'm asking this is two cases in point. The national women's volleyball team, a couple of years ago, I think 2 years ago, they were going for the World Championship. They made a request so that they could prepare for the World Championship. This is the national women's team who have been African champions over and over again. When they do poorly, so to speak, they come second to Cameroon. Cameroon, whose government supports them to have camps in South America, in Eastern Europe, the big Brazil nations. Our girls going for World Championships have to play against men's league clubs. And this is after they've put in requests to the ministry a year in advance, the last time they were going to the World Championship. And still, they didn't get anything. I think they got support 2 weeks to travel. So what warrants importance? And that is one case. The second case, the national women's rugby team, going for Olympic qualifiers. They eventually had to get handouts, so to speak, from Paul Tergat at the International Olympic Committee, because the ministry just didn't feel it was important enough for the women's rugby team to get funds to go to Tunisia for Olympic qualifiers. But the minute they qualified, all of a sudden, these are our girls. So between volleyball women and rugby women, and I'm sure so many other ministries, what do you consider important enough to give money to?
I must say that all sports disciplines are important to the ministry. There isn't really a lesser sport than the other. The ministry's business, as I earlier indicated, is to nurture talent and bring to light and to make sure that all sporting men and women of good nature and standing benefit from their God-given talent. That really is our business. The question of whether a team has not been paid on time or not is a matter that is debatable. There are, of course, instances where teams delay in their requisition for funds. There are, of course, situations where even if when they request for funds, there are still gaps in their request that needs to be fulfilled. And more importantly, there may be times when you make a request and funds may not be available. Those are the realities of life that we are all to live in by. And therefore, I am sure the question of the girls' team, the ladies' team that went out to represent this country, I'm aware of that time. And therefore, those shortcomings have all been sorted out. And as and when there are guidelines on when teams are supposed to ask for resources, those guidelines must be adhered to, and there's no shortcut to it. But the gaps that were there have all been streamlined for now.
I mean, I know the volleyball ladies ask 10 months in advance. So when you say that their notice sometimes is short, I don't really understand that. This government and Honorable Hassan, when it comes to things like salary increments for members of parliament or supplementary budgets, all of a sudden money is found. When it comes to sport, it's like it's a luxury. So let those people just suffer until we have some small change. That's the image, that's the impression we get from where we sit.
That is not the case. I don't want to speak on behalf of Parliament. I am not a parliamentarian. How they get their money is none of my business. But my business is to make sure that the sportsmen and women of this country get resources that are sufficient for their performances and their trainings and their activities. And therefore, that really is where I work. And I can only give as much as what I have been given. Well, if Treasury, National Treasury gives me resources, I will, of course, give enough resources. If it doesn't, I will, of course, push National Treasury to make sure that they increase the budget. And therefore, that really is where we are. And we look forward to a very, very brighter future, Carol. All is not doom and gloom.
What challenges do you face in dispensing your duties? Because you strike me as a man who cares about sport, but what challenges do you face? Because somebody somewhere doesn't care as much as you do. That's a fact.
No, Carol, we care a lot about our sportsmen and women. And of course, the challenges of resources is quite the thing. The other challenge, of course, is the politics in the federation sometimes can be very disheartening. Those are some of the challenges that we face. But however, the ministry is up to the task. We'll overcome these challenges and we'll make sure that the sportsmen and women have a brighter future. There's a lot ahead for us.
There's a comment here from Rosemary Mudhoni. Do we have plans of developing recreation centers mashinani? There are several, but there are no provisions for any sports activities.
Thank you. I think Mudhoni is right. Sports is not just stadiums. The social halls, the indoors, the schools in the neighborhood, the sports field in the schools that are within our neighborhood, all these need to be developed for the benefit of the inhabitants of the people in the region. And that's why in our long-term discussion that we've had with different counties, and we're going to engage counties on one-to-one as and when this pandemic of corona gets better, then we are pushing the county governments to provide sports facilities that are within the neighborhood of estates, within the neighborhood of schools, so that they can be able to develop and nurture talents in those areas. For example, we need boxing clubs. It doesn't require a big stadium to construct. It doesn't require millions of shillings. If you want a small track to do a small games, you just go to the neighboring school and use it. That's why we have thousands, tens of thousands of sports fields in this country that are just lying idle, that we are telling people to go and train in those fields in the schools.
But the conditions of some of those facilities, you can't even train on some of those facilities.
The conditions are not very good, of course, but for purpose of training in the rural areas, school pitches are still in good conditions, many of them, for training purposes.
There's a comment here from Judy Masharia. She says, what does the ministry intend to do or should have been doing to incorporate young people in leadership capacities in sports? We have so many sports people leaving the sport in their mid-30s, in their early 30s. And is there a plan by the ministry to incorporate them, to give them jobs in some capacities?
Very well. I think the ministry does encourage sportsmen and women not to go from the sports arena once they leave the professional career. Sports is an investment. Sports is a career, and you do not leave your career midstream. You move on. We want to see many sportsmen and women like Paul Tergat come in, Catherine Dereva, to continue moving in the sports federations and management. It's only when you are a sportsman and woman you can be able to truly manage a sports federation or a sports management as a sports administrator. And therefore, we encourage the young not to leave sports. Sports is a career. Sports is an investment.
Does the government believe sports is a career? Because we are treated like sports is a hobby. That's the hard, cold fact.
It doesn't, Carol, and that's why we have an entire Ministry of Sports. We have a State Department of Sports, run by a cabinet secretary, deputized by a CAS, with the PSs and technical officers who manage and help sports building, sports management in this country. That's why we have devolved sports in this country up to the lowest level, where we have sports managers at the county level to make sure that the sports is seen as an investment and a career.
If that was the case, wouldn't we be seeing Kenya going for Olympics and doing more than just athletics? I mean, well done to the athletes who get the national anthem played at international events, but we rarely see any other sport rising to that level. Harambee Stars only went for AFCON for the first time last year since 2004. Rugby 15s, have we ever been to the World Cup? No, I don't think so. So when we say we take sports seriously, we want to develop sport, for me, the measure of success would be more representation in world events. That's how I would probably judge the success of your ministry.
Carol, there are countries that are bigger in size and bigger in population than Kenya, and they have never clinched a single gold medal in the entire Olympics and in the entire sporting history. Therefore, don't let down our sportsmen and women in this country. We have done great. We will do great. The ministry is fully engaged. We are, of course, there are sports that are better than the others. I mean, athletics is ours, and rugby is also, we're doing very well in rugby. There's no doubt about it. Our volleyball teams and basketball teams are going greater heights, and therefore it's 1 mile at a time. We are growing slowly, Caro.
I don't know. I mean, respect to the athletes. Respect to the athletes. They've really put us on the national stage, as you say. When it comes to basketball and volleyball, Africa, we've conquered Africa. World, we're still light years away. Football, we've barely conquered East Africa. Rugby, yes, rugby sevens on the national circuit. Last time we went to the Olympics, it was a disaster. Next year, hopefully we're going for Olympics, we'll do better. But I think there's still a long way to go. But I just want to move on to the next question. There's an archbishop here. He says, my question is, what are some of the measures that the ministry intends to push the government in a bid to create a friendly environment for investors and sponsors in Kenyan sporting activities?
Investors in sporting activities are welcome, like any other investment that we have in every sector of the economy. And therefore, there is there's no discrimination. Government has provided the necessary environment for investors to come and invest. And therefore, I don't really know whether he has any specific question that relates to maybe preferential treatment for sportsmen and women, for sports investors in the country. But we have quite a number of people who are showing interest in investment in the sports development in the country. And therefore, we're looking for investors, for example, to come and put up stadiums, for example. That's an investment by itself. It's a money minting organization. And therefore, we are asking people to come and invest in sports development, sports equipment productions in this country. And therefore, we're really encouraging as and when we get people who come here.
I mean, he didn't expound. I imagine he probably had betting companies in mind. I can't speak for him, but we've gone through the betting issue. But for example, in Nigeria, if a company wants to sponsor a national team, they actually get tax rebates, like charity, or if it's CSR that they're doing. There's certain level of tax rebates that corporates get if they step up to sponsor sporting activities, for example. Is that something our government maybe could be considering, just to encourage sponsorship?
It's a good suggestion, Caro. I think it's a matter that we need to look into because we have a lot of people who are coming up, a lot of corporates coming up to help and sponsor our games. For purpose of marketing, again, they're doing very well. If you look at rugby, they have quite a lot of premier sponsors. And therefore, those are areas we could explore. And thank you for the suggestion.
Just two issues, again, involving women's team. One, Harambee Starlets. I'm not sure if you've been briefed on the Harambee Starlets and the fact that we had a group of girls who represented Kenya over the last 3-4 years. Allowances were supposed to be paid by the government. The former PS, Ambassador Kaberia, had promised them that he would pay them next week for almost 2 years. And up until now, the ladies who no longer play for Harambee Starlets still don't have allowances from tournaments where they represented Kenya some of them 4 years ago. And I've tried to raise this issue with the ministry before, and nobody seems to be giving any answers. I've tried to raise it with the Federation. They say they were never given money. It was a national assignment, which should have been under the ministry. So I'm not sure if you're aware of that case of Harambee Starlets and whether you could comment.
Very well. Thank you very much, Caro, about the Harambee Starlets. However, the general principle is that the Harambee Starlets issue, I think, is a matter that I need to maybe look at it. I don't have any specific answer for now. I may have to get back to the officers in the team in the office to find out. But just for information, it's not an automatic that once a team travels out of the country, they must be paid allowances. Some of the teams go out to play on invitational tours. And once you go out on an invitational tour, it may not be possible to fund you. And therefore, you may have issues here and there. But of course, the ministry pays allowances to teams. They pay for the accommodations, travel arrangements, and other related expenses when the request has been made. And normally when requests are made, in this case, the requests are made to the fund. Once the request is made to the fund in its own judgment looks at it and provides the necessary support. And therefore, my appeal to federations is that when they are asking for funding, the funding must be done in quite sufficient time so that the board, the sports fund board can have a look at it and be able to approve. But for the Harambee Starlets, you'll give me time, I look up at this matter.
Please do, because the Federation, I hit a roadblock with the Federation and they threw it back to the ministry. And I had raised it with Ambassador Kaberia, who's no longer in the ministry. And I mean, he kept promising next week for 2 years. So I'd appreciate if you look into that. I just want to indicate that for example, in November 2019, FKF placed a request for the Starlets as they were going to play qualifiers match in Zambia.
Yes. And therefore, the ministry catered for all their costs, including allowances and the players and technical bench and everybody, because that was received in good time. And therefore, our appeal is, I don't know exactly specifically this specific one, what the issues were. I will have to find out. But our appeal is to make sure that we get the request on time so that priorities can be done well. I promise to follow up on the Starlets issue.
I'm actually aware that you gave them money in good time towards the end of last year. Just to let you know what happened, that came after an interview I had on radio with the former girls who had been dropped. New girls had been brought in, and as if to show that we actually look after our girls, they made sure that the current team was well looked after, but the team that had been dropped were completely abandoned. But I respect that you said you're going to look into that issue. Another issue involving girls.
Sorry, Caro, I think we do not take care of teams on account of public pressure. We take care of teams.
No, not you. I'm saying the Federation, not you.
Yeah, we take care of our teams as a matter of our own obligation.
That is understood. The other issue where I was eventually called an enemy of the ministry was when our netball girls got stranded in Cape Town, and there was all this PR where they were told through intimidation to abandon, to make it appear like everything was fine. I wrote about that issue. I was called an enemy of the ministry. Unfortunately, because of intimidation within these sporting teams, the girls who are affected or the sports people affected can never speak up. And those girls came back to Nairobi and they sent me messages and they told me, Radull, thank you for getting us home. After what we went through in Cape Town, thank you for getting us home. Unfortunately, the official word was nothing happened in Cape Town. Everything was fine. And I was called an enemy of the sports ministry, which I am not. I just like to look after. I think our sports people deserve a lot of respect. So if you could look into that issue as well. I don't know if anyone would speak up because they're afraid. because the minute they speak up, they lose their positions in the national team. So that happens a lot, unfortunately. But I trust those are things you will look into.
Thank you, Carol.
I just have
Carol, I don't see you as an minister. Yeah. Carol, the other issue is you see, you're really delving too much into history. Maybe that's the dark side of the ministry. This ministry is under new leadership. There have been so many changes. Watch our space. Give us an opportunity to serve.
I respect that. My only concern is, and the reason I delve into history is because these are people still owed money. And you're telling somebody who represented Kenya a year, 2, 3 years ago, you were under a different ministry, so sorry, we are dealing with the new generation now. Forget about the old ones. Shauri yako, your money went, that ship sailed. So that is why I'm delving into history, because there's still people sitting at home, and I'm sure they'll text me immediately after this and say, so now is our money coming? I'll just tell them, I respect that the Honorable CAS is looking into it. I just have 2 key questions because we have about 10 minutes left. This is from J.M. Gakonya. He watches every week from London. He says, Carol, please ask this question. Why is it that FKF as a federation has failed to grow football in a country of 50 million people? Players are suffering. The government is not benefiting from a football economy, and the mess at the federation only gets worse. Without the government and FIFA funding FKF, without the government and FIFA funding, FKF would file for bankruptcy the next morning. I think
I'm not sure that question is for me, or that's for FKF.
I think his general feeling is that this government could be raking in millions and millions in taxes should the sports industry work. A sport industry that works would be raking in millions and millions in taxes, but it doesn't because it doesn't work. And I think what the ministry tends to do is, it's the federation, it's not us. It's the federation, it's not us. So wouldn't you want to see an industry that works?
Of course, Carol, it's a joy for all of us to see a sports industry that works. We are not yet there. And I'm sure our brother in the UK may be following up on this matter. And you would see a sports industry run and managed by, like the way it happens in the UK. We are not yet there. We will get there. We, of course, are putting, if we are already struggling to put up our infrastructure in place. We have teams that are putting up their own stadiums, state-of-the-art stadiums in the other developed world. And therefore, one step at a time, he should not give up. His contributions are very important to us. Our federations, of course, are teething on management problems. They are still crawling. They have not been able to stand on their own. And that's why the ministry steps in once in a while to help them stand on their own and work. Therefore, all is not lost. We're looking forward to a better future in sports. Thank you.
I have 2 more questions left. This one is from Boita Kaloki. He's a Kenyan based in Dubai. He says, the next World Cup in Qatar is a good chance for Kenya to host teams and boost our economy. Facilities, security, infrastructure, all that is key. Unless the ministry doesn't have an objective to generate profits or boost the economy, there is no excuse. Do we have the capacity to host teams going to Qatar for the World Cup?
Teams from locally or regional
From
teams?
all over the world, from Africa,
all over the
world. I mean, they'll be looking for countries that have similar weather patterns and good infrastructure. And if they can't get a Middle Eastern, East Africa is the next best country, you know, to try and...
My goodness. Carol, is there anybody else who can match Kenya in the region? We have beautiful weather, good people, and we have reasonable stadiums compared to
No, we don't. We don't.
By that time we will have stadiums that can be used for trainings.
These teams are preparing now because the World Cup is what? It's 2 years away, and I'm sure a lot of teams will be preparing as early as towards the end of this year on where they're going to camp ahead of Qatar 2022. So we should already have infrastructure in place. We should have proposals in place. And we should be approaching okay, we don't know yet who's qualified, but they're sometimes the usual suspects. But we should basically have a document ready saying, come and camp in Kenya for 2 months before Qatar 2022. This is what we have to offer.
Good suggestion, Caro. But I want to tell you that we are capable of hosting. We've been hosting international events, Caro. We have done it. We're still going to do it. You remember this year we're supposed to have had nearly 3 international events in this country. While under 20 was going to be done here. We have the Safari Rally coming, which is supposed to come up this year. We are capable of hosting. We have accommodation facilities that are completely out of this world compared to the region in Eastern Central Africa. And therefore, we can. It's only that we need to focus ourselves in that direction and make sure that we benefit from that opportunity. And thank you for the suggestion.
We have everything but Stadia. We have everything, Safari Rally, we have Great Roads for Rally, but Stadia.
We'll get there.
Stadia.
We'll get there in due course.
There's someone's comment, it's lost, it was somewhere in the comment section where they said there's too much promise. We will. I want to hear, we are here. But before we wrap, because we only have about 8 minutes left, a lot of countries are opening up their sporting activities, which because of the lockdown, I know you have an important engagement at 3 o'clock, which you need to leave for soon. There's been this lockdown, which is nobody's fault because of COVID-19, but we've seen around the world, a lot of sporting events are starting to open up. What plans do we have here in Kenya to begin to open up a lot of these sporting events? And the leagues and yes.
I must say that COVID-19 has ravaged our entire economy, and the sports sector is not exceptional. The president has given direction that we all move in different sectors and come up with protocols and regulations that are going to guide us in the resumption of our specific economies. This we are working on very well. In fact, I chair a task force that has been appointed by the cabinet secretary in the ministry that is supposed to look at the resumption of sports activities. This task force has completed its work, and we are putting the final draft together. We had a 2 weeks time within which to do this. We have done it. We are now in the 3.5 weeks now. We have finished the work together. The necessary protocols have been put together. But all this is dictated by the happenings in the global sector, in the global arena, and also in the country itself. Nobody still knows how COVID-19 is behaving. It behaves differently. We may provide recommendations here and there. We have already put down our protocols for the resumption of sports activities in the country. We are ready with our draft document. However, we're still seeing an upsurge in the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. And therefore, we are still in a very close engagement with the Ministry of Health to see how we can be able to do it. We have different sports. We have the contact sports and we have the non-contact sports. The contact sports may be challenging, but the necessary protocols are being put in place to make sure we resume sports. When it's going to be is not yet known. When is our recommendations going to be handed over to government? Maybe in the next 1 week. These are matters that is still under discussion.
In terms of support for the players, I commend the ministry. You came up with a plan, and a lot of players from different leagues and sporting disciplines were getting 10,000 shillings per month for 3 months. And I think this is their last 3 months, or is over, but COVID is still a problem, as you know. Is there a plan to give some of these sports people a bit more? And in the same breath, I got an inbox from a cricketer saying cricketers got nothing.
Yeah, the stimulus package for the sportsmen and women have been put in place. It's supposed to run for some 3 months. We've been able to give nearly about 23 million now. and it's going to run up to August. It's June, July, and August. Those 3 months, we shall be able to provide 10,000 for some limited number of sportsmen and women. We have already given about 2,315 of them. We have given over 300 of them food rations that were supported both by the ministry and federations and other corporate bodies. So we look forward to overcoming this pandemic. We live on hope, and as and when these 3 months end, the ministry is still considering looking for more resources to continue cushioning the sportsmen and women. And I want to tell you, Caro, that we are the first ministry that thought about cushioning that sector from the vagaries of the COVID-19 pandemic.
We got 14 billion or thereabouts. That was, I believe, the proposal for the ministry's budget for the next financial year for sports, arts, and culture. I'm not sure whether you're in a position or you're able to break down which part of the ministry gets how much and what for.
Very well. I will quickly look at this, and thank you. The ministry's budget in 2018-2019 was about 10.6 billion shillings. 2019-2020 is 14.9 billion shillings. And 2020-2021 is 15.3 billion shillings. Of the 9.89 billion, Caro, under the current budget, is under the current budget in 2018 and 2019 financial year. 8.5 billion was spent on sports, arts, and social development. And therefore, a lot of the money goes to the physical development of sports, arts, and physical development, and social development. And when we talk about social development, it includes universal health care. That takes 60% of the social and arts and social development fund. And therefore, despite all these inceptions by SDF, we still face serious challenge. The department gets about 35% of the funding. This funding is not enough of the sports development fund. We require still more money to be able to cushion, to help sports development and also infrastructure in sports development. We have major events like World Safari Rally, we have Tokyo, Olympics that are coming up. All these require nearly 2 billion shillings, which needs to be raised through the National Treasury. And therefore, of the 2016-17 financial year, the state has been undertaking mega projects.
Hello?
Yes, oh, yes, sorry. The state has been undertaking major projects. And therefore, we still have reasonably very low funding compared to the needs in the ministry. That 14 billion includes recurrent expenditure. It includes salaries of staff. It includes very many of the aspects, and therefore, it's very little compared to our what we have.
It's quite unfortunate because it sounds like there's nothing left at the end of the day for the actual development of sports.
We'll manage with the little that is there for now. But I think we are engaged fully with the National Treasury to be able to provide the necessary funds required for the sports development.
Just one policy I wish you can look into. This is a query from Abuko Kennedy. He says, how is the ministry facilitating local investors? He says former players, a lot of them have tried to establish football academies to keep themselves busy and earn a living, but the costs of just setting up these establishments is very, very high. Is that something that can be looked into?
It's a matter that we could look into, Caro. Development of sport academies. We encourage former sportsmen and women. In the athletics, where we have gone a bit higher, we have quite a number of our former athletes who are working very hard on establishing their own training centers, and therefore they have been able to manage that bit of it. For football, I think we may not have had that progress yet.
You see, our athletics are fortunate enough. When they run international events, they earn millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Our footballers are not starting with a bundle of cash by the time their careers end. So if things could be made a bit simpler for those who want to get back into giving back to the sport, I mean, I'd appreciate that from your ministry. I know we are out of time. There were still many questions. I'm hoping we can have another conversation, probably a one-on-one, so that some of these, so I can get answers to some of these questions that are being looked into, being planned. And then, of course, that stadium tour, I'll hold you to that one. Do you have any parting shots?
Thank you very much, Caro. I think this is the most insightful interview I've had within the last few days. My appeal to Kenyans is that the ministry is fully committed to making sure that the sportsmen and women are fully nurtured and supported. Let us not dwell a lot in history. History should be able to guide us on to avoiding the mistakes that we've done in the past. This ministry has a new management. It has a new leadership, and the president himself is fully engaged. He has got the youth of this country at heart. He wants to make sure that the youth are fully engaged, and therefore, instead of giving youth small tokens of money, it's important to nurture their talent. And I believe sports is one of the best sector that can be able to engage and develop and also train and provide career path for our youth, who most of them feel completely left out in the world. We are not just a sporting country. We are not just a football fan country. Many of our youth look at football just for the sake of leisure. We want to make them really investors. We want to make them footballers. We've exported a number of our players from this country to international teams across the world. We are appealing them to come back and invest in the sports industry in their motherland. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chief Administrative Secretary, Ministry of Sports, Culture and Heritage, Honorable Hassan Noor Hassan. You have managed to answer some of my questions. All those follow-ups, we will follow up. We will follow up. But thank you for your time. And I wish you the best. I know you have an engagement. That's why you're out of town. But thank you.
Thank you so much, Caro. I have tried my best. I have given you the best I could. We look forward to future engagements. I'm sure we'll be able to understand each other more.
Action.
We will show you. We will show you.
All right, then. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for our viewers and for your time.
Yes, thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week for another edition of Radull Live. Bye-bye.
Bye.